it's a real regime almost.
Oh, hell no.
They're talking about me.
All I needed was one ball.
The science of training.
And I know you don't think it's a sport. So what is, okay, last thing I want to ask you is, what is your take on retirement? When is the right time to retire? Because Lee Haney retired when he was like, what, 32 or 30, whatever. He was very young, right? In the 30s, like early.
31 years old. Well, he had nothing to prove. He beat Arnold's record, winning 8 Mr. Olympias. He was still in great shape. You know, I felt that he could have still continued on because he had better shape than Dorian Yates. But he, like I said, he accomplished everything he had to do, and he stepped down. I think the guys that continue on when they start like not placing and they kind of still want to stay up there and they keep trying and trying and trying and their body starts to, you know, regress and they get injuries. I knew when I started placing lower and I was trying to place higher that it was time for me to retire. You know, there's always a changing of the guard of the athletes. You can see it all the time. There's this like 10-year gap where it starts to change and the new guys come in, and those guys from, you know, 10 years, they start to slowly fade away. The only amazing bodybuilder out of all those guys that have been able to prove that wrong was Dexter Jackson, who went 20 years, you know, which is amazing. He went 20 years, you know, competing. This last year, you could tell it was his time to retire. You know, he made top 10, but I can't say anything, you know, bad about a guy who's 51 years old placing in the top 10 in the Olympia is still an amazing feat.
Yeah, I know he made a decision to retire before. He announced it before the Olympia, obviously. Right?
Yeah,
I feel like with his, even though they were lower placing, but I mean, still top 10 first of all, and then I feel like next year he would have been top 10 too if he would have chosen to compete.
Yeah, I think he probably still could have got top 10, but what is he? I guess he said, "What am I proving?" And so, you know, he decided to step away. You know, and
Phenomenal what he was able to do. It's unheard of, you know.
No, to be in that shape, in that condition, and be competitive. That's what's amazing. Be competitive in your 50s. The only bodybuilder to do that in my time was Albert Beckles, but I don't even think he did as many shows as what Dexter did. Because, you know, when I competed, it was funny. My first year in the Olympia, I was 22 years old, and the guy who I came third, and the guy who beat me was Albert Beckles, who was like 53 in the show.
How did they feel?
I mean, I felt I should have beaten him, but that's me as a young cocky kid. But, you know, now that I look at it, the guy was a great bodybuilder. You know, to be able to be that competitive, you know, in the Mr. Olympia. The first pro show I went in, I lost to Albert Beckles, and he was like this legend bodybuilder, and I came in as an unknown. He came second to him, and everyone thought I should have beaten him, but he deserved, you know, I think back now, and he deserved to beat me. You know, I was too much of a newcomer.
Last thing I want to ask you: Do you have favorite gurus in the sport? Favorite coaches that you feel like are the top tier coaches in bodybuilding?
Do I have my favorites on the top coaches? I know, you know, Hani. Um, I'm good friends with Chris. I know Chris Aceto. He trains more like, because he's from like my era. He trains a lot of his bodybuilders like old school. Everything from the dieting is very just more like that makes sense. There's no drastic, you know, crazy diets that he gives and training that he gives. And for me, it's Chris Aceto is one of the best, you know, trainers because he makes it simple. He doesn't make it so complicated to have all this like, you know, drastic diet or drastic training principles that some of these other trainers, you know, follow. I mean, Hani, I've seen what Hani Rambod does, and you know, he's trained guys like Phil and Jay, and he's another one that's, you know, a great trainer. George Farah, but I would still like say I've seen a lot what Chris has done, and I like how Chris handles today's bodybuilders.